Okay, this session is going to be dealing with alcohol and drugs, and I guess I'm not going to go through all the stuff I put together on this. Do go online, go to gracebibleny.org, and then the section should be there, even if you're not getting this sermon audio with the PDF with the links and stuff to it. There's a lot of stuff I put out dealing with what Scripture actually says about alcohol. There's a lot of stuff out there that's not, I say it's probably more cultural than what biblical in statements that are being made. One just deals with every word that is used in Hebrew and in Greek, dealing with wine, strong drink, mixed drink, anything dealing with it. There's quite a few. There's wine, new wine, right. Bubbles produced in the fermentation process, sweet wine. There's the dregs in wine. There's a fermented drink made from grain or fruit.
Mixed wines.
And then there's mixed wines. So there's a lot of different things that are out there. So go to those particular papers, and I think that would be helpful. There's a sheet just on scripture command directives concerning strong drink. There's interesting verses about wine, just some interesting things, including things like you tithe, including your wine. When in Deuteronomy 14:23, it's dealing with some of the rights of Levites and what they can do with the tithe,
right,
money that they receive, and that includes you may spend money for whatever your heart desires, oxen, sheep, wine, or strong drink, whatever your heart desires, and there you shall eat in the presence of the Lord your God and rejoice. There's a paper just on the cautions on use of wine. There's a lot of cautions on wine. Another paper on Jesus and wine, and then a couple sermons I gave dealing with one on Proverbs that gives a lot of the dangers of drinking. But I think it's important that we, again, make sure we're thinking through things from what Scripture actually says than cultural. That's a huge issue, and that can go either direction. There are Christian cultures in which nobody thinks twice about drinking, including hard liquors, and there's other cultures, Christian cultures, subcultures, in which anything with alcohol in it, unless it's for medicinal use, is absolutely, forbidden. The question is, in what is?
I think the European culture, they're mostly like, well, they always drink wine, their dinner or whatever, right?
They don't think twice about it. Germans are beer, so grain alcohol instead of from grapes or fruit. So it varies. But that goes back to some common things. So I had several questions here. First, why is it common to find strong statements in American conservative evangelical churches that restrict consumption of alcohol except for medicinal use? Where did that come from?
So maybe from the prohibition.
Yeah, came from the prohibition movement. And yeah, obviously there's legitimate concerns. People get drunk, and that's wrong. And so there's efforts of, okay, if we don't have it, then you can't get drunk, right?
Right.
So that's pretty easy. We don't have it, can't get drunk, society better off. That's something some people don't realize, that prohibition actually did work. It actually did work.
How long was the prohibition
on? Really wasn't all that long. It was through most of the 20s.
Oh.
But what ended up happening is it became a way for gangs, for organized crime to make a lot of money. And that's where the failure came in. So in some major cities, you had huge amounts of illicit alcohol being sold here and there, the speakeasies and running liquor across borders, or people starting to make their own,
Yeah.
quote unquote bathtub gin. And some of it was dangerous because people didn't know what they're doing and they could end up,
themselves.
yeah, well, some did, they killed themselves. Um, so, but society as a whole actually did a little better. Dry counties, which is there's still quite a few in the South, because you can't buy liquor in those counties. But like county my dad was from, Jasper County, was dry county, but you certainly wouldn't know if you walked along the side of the road from the amount of cans of beer cans and stuff thrown out the side of the road, but they just buy it someplace else.
We have one locally, Grahamsville.
Yeah, it's dry. So, you can see the effort as a society of trying to do that, but that's kind of where it came from. Next question was nuance the difference in the following list of Hebrew Greek words for wine, drink, which would have greater or lesser alcohol. Well, wine, yayin, and oinos in Greek would just be normal fermented grape juice. Okay, and depending on how it was fermented, it's normally maximum is 12%. That's maximum. Most of the time, it's going to be lower than that because you have to have ideal conditions for it. To get a champagne, which would be something like the word Kammer, which was for the bubbles in fermentation, if you do it just right, you can get up to 14%.
Beer, how much is that? The beer?
6.
Oh, that's 6%.
It's usually 6, plus or minus a little bit, depending on how carefully you are monitoring everything. So it's usually just 6. A fortified beer or a lager or something to be up to 12.
Oh.
So Turash is fresh or new wine, so it hasn't had time to gain a lot of fermentation and alcohol in it. But if you're looking at those cultures, they don't have refrigeration. They didn't have pasteurization. It doesn't take that long for something to start fermenting. But if it's new or fresh wine, then it's fresh squeezed and it hasn't been sitting a long time. So it's not going to have a very high alcohol content. Yourself, if you take Welch's grape juice, which has no alcohol in it, and you've opened it and then you let it sit, well, after a week or two, it's got a bit of a bite to it. What happened to it? Well, it's starting to ferment.
Like a vinegar.
Well, if you let it go to, it could go to vinegar. But you get a little bit of bite to it. Now it's the alcohol that's going to. Sweet wine, essos in Hebrew, and glucose, actually glucose. We get our word glucose from it. It's sugar. So this is very fresh. It hasn't fermented at all. It is sweet. And grape juice, when it's fresh, is sweet. It's that sugar that ferments and turns into alcohol. Shemer is dregs, so that's the particles from at the bottom from it being crushed. And then fermented drink made from grains or fruit, shkar in Hebrew and kara in Greek. So you can ferment grains. Beer is a fermented grain, usually barley, or you can use wheat. You can use a small grain, but if you put water in them and you allow those to start fermenting, you'll get alcohol in it. But it only goes so far, and then the alcohol is going to stop the process from what's causing fermentation. Or you can use other fruits. So it doesn't have to just be grapes. You can ferment almost any fruit.
Rice, right? Sake.
Sake is rice wine. So that's a grain. So actually I guess it would be technically a beer.
Oh, sake?
I guess it would, because it's it's rice wine,
exactly.
but it's a grain.
Yep.
So wine is usually considered from that. Mixed wines would be either different kinds of wines mixed together or mixed with water, which is usually what would happen is they would mix it with water. The alcohol was actually helpful in reducing the dangers of water that's contaminated with something. So 3% of alcohol range of the following: fermented naturally.
4 to 12.
Yeah, it depends on the conditions of just letting it ferment. If it's fermented in controlled conditions, so that would be like a champagne or something like that.
20%.
Yeah, you can get it a lot higher, but that's carefully controlling everything. That's hard. Now distilled,
35 to 65%, or 80.
well, if it's distilled, you get 100%.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because distilling is as you're pulling off the alcohol, as you're heating it up, the alcohol
Oh, I
is
see.
coming out, so it's going to have a lower boiling point. So you're catching that vapor, you're cooling it, and that's what you're getting. That's why it's distilled. So it actually can go up to 100%. So
Which ones are like vodka or something, or
vodkas are, I guess depends if it's cheap or not. Vodka's usually, I think, around 80%, so it would be 180 proof. A lot of the hard liquors are going to be up in that range, 160 to 180.
what's the proof? I mean, I always hear that, but I'm not sure.
Yeah,
what that
well,
means.
it's
Like 71,
the
80 proof.
easiest thing is just divide it by 2, and that's the percentage.
Oh, I
So
see.
proof has to do is what do they have to add to reach a point? I think I'm trying to remember now. It's proving. I think it's
So basically, the
has
higher
to
it
do
is,
with,
the higher the
flaming.
alcohol content then,
Yeah.
right?
So 200 proof is 100% alcohol. So 100 proof is 50%. So that's what proof
Yep,
is.
I see.
So it's how they test it to prove what it is.
Oh,
So liquors, and there's a different definitions too. Wines are fermented. Liquors are distilled. There's something distilled in it.
I see.
So that makes a difference in them.
But during Jesus's time, do they have this hard liquors? They don't,
No.
right? I think you mentioned
They
that.
didn't distill. That wasn't invented yet. So, but you could, you can get drunk if you drink enough.
Yeah,
You can get
yeah.
drunk on just naturally fermented stuff. People, a wino is a drunk. They just have more than a.
But not with this hard proof, because now you can. People
Yeah,
are
you
just
can get a little
drinking.
shot of something,
Yeah, exactly.
and you're like. Now, I didn't know this thing's not because I drink. I don't. I'm a teetotaler. I come from a family of teetotalers, but it's because I've done a lot of research, and in my degree in agriculture biology, it included viticulture,
Oh,
which is
especially in
growing the grapes for wine. So we had to know something about that. So I know about growing
especially in
it,
California,
and
too, right?
yeah, that's how I know. What causes fruit juice and grain broths to ferment?
It's the microorganisms such as yeast and bacteria that it's the sugar, right?
Yeah, so it's yeast is the most common, and yeast is everywhere. It's hard to not get yeast in something, which is why, and if it's a natural fruit and you haven't scrubbed it and done something to kill all the yeast in there, it's already got yeast in it. So as soon as you squash it and you got the juice there, it's going to start turning those sugars, because it's actually living on the sugar. The byproduct is alcohol. So that's what's going to cause it. How can the fermentation process be slowed down or stopped?
Control the temperature, right?
You control the temperature, cool it down, okay? Or you can stop it, you can boil it, and that'll stop it for a while. Okay, that's pasteurization, and then sealing it so there's no more.
Right.
You boil
more
it, it's hot, you
contamination.
killed everything, and it's sealed tight, and you pasteurize, and it can stay for a long time. Hence, Welch's grape juice, which was not invented until the 1800s.
Oh, grape juice.
Yeah. So Dr. Welch did a good job, and that was in Western New York, Concord grapes. So I appreciate it because I like grape juice,
Better.
and I don't like it where it bites back. Now, the question is could you have cooled this down in ancient times?
No, they don't have like
No,
like
not unless it was winter, but by then you already had your harvest already fermented before it got cold. It just wasn't a way to do it. So everything's going to ferment. Now you could put it in like a spring house or something, something that adds cooler, and that might slow it down a little bit, but it's still going to ferment. If you put, like I mentioned before, if you take a bottle of Welch's grape juice, you've opened it, then you just put it back in, you let it sit for a while in your refrigerator, so it's already cool. It's still going to ferment. It'll take a while, but it will do that. All right, what is the connection between wine and God's blessing in scriptures?
Well, we see the blessings with it, you know, in sync with wine. Like for example, wine is reserved for special occasions and celebrations, that kind of stuff.
It's actually pretty consistent, isn't it?
Right.
If wine is present, then God's blessings are upon you. If there is no wine,
Yeah.
there's a curse on you. That's because you didn't have a harvest. And so there actually is a connection there. How what connections are made between wine and the worship of God?
It's used for like material and divine blessings and also for worship, right?
Yeah, it actually be used as part of worship, and that include drink offerings.
Yeah.
And so is there.
Yeah,
W-
Exodus 24, 29, 40, it's like libation of wine, right? When they
Yeah, so that is a drink offering. So it is part of it. It's part of the celebration of God's blessings. So we'll go to scriptures. We're going to find is there's a lot of positive statements. The absence of wine, what does that indicate?
it's familiar,
Yeah, probably famine,
right? And
or
lack of blessing.
it's a lack of blessing. You've gotten something's attacked your crops. Maybe it's even your neighboring
Mhm.
countries have attacked and stolen all your stuff. If you don't have wine,
Yeah.
it's an indication of a curse. All right, 9. What is the value of abstinence, and what groups are either forbidden or restricted from the use of wine?
There are some groups that are forbidden, like the Nazarite.
The Nazarites
and,
could not have.
and some of the priests, right? Or the priests.
They
They're
were
serving in
restricted.
the tent of,
Correct.
of meeting.
You don't want to end up like Nadab and Abihu.
Yep, exactly.
Which the text really does indicate they may have been drunk
Yeah.
when they went in. It was very appropriate. They offered strange fire, and the Lord killed them. And immediately after that, then the restriction comes on them is they may not drink when they're serving. Period. Nazarites, it wasn't just wine they couldn't have. Anything to do with a grape.
Mm.
Anything to do
Oh,
with
that's
grape.
right.
So those Nazarite vows. So the value of abstinence then? Well, if you're preaching, you're not going to get killed, certainly.
Exactly. Right.
That would help.
I guess there's some reasons why there's some reasons why they're forbidden, right? For like
Mhm.
obviously for worship.
You want to make sure your faculty is all there.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Proverbs 30, you have the words of King Lemuel, and he talks about it's not for kings, Lemuel, it's not for kings to drink wine and pervert justice. So it can affect your mind, and therefore you don't make good decisions. So absence can be very helpful in making sure that your faculties are completely on board so you can make wise decisions. What warnings are given in scripture concerning consuming alcoholic drinks?
Well, actually, before we go there, I mean, there's a restriction for elders and deacons as well, right? For I mean,
Yeah.
obviously not zero, but they
Yeah.
can,
Which can have more?
deacons.
Deacons. Okay, elders not given to wine, and deacons are not given to much wine. So deacons can have more wine than elders. But neither one is going to be marked by that's something that's, a big part of their life. That's
Right.
not, it's secondary
Mhm.
or even absent. So,
Yeah.
Okay, warnings in scriptures concerning alcoholic drinks.
Proverbs 21, wine is a mocker, strong drink is a brawler, and whoever's intoxicated by it's not wise. Yeah.
There's all sorts of warnings. There's another passage in Proverbs that it describes a drunk.
Yeah.
He's beat up and he doesn't know who did it. He's reeling as on a ship. He's he's staggering, and then he gets to the end he finally gets sober and he wants another drink. It's bad. So there's a lot of warnings about alcohol.
Yeah.
When is the line crossed?
I guess when you can control,
Yeah. When you're drunk, you definitely cross the line.
Right.
And probably if you're starting to feel the buzz, which that's how people describe it to me. Since I haven't had it, I don't know. But they describe it as a buzz. If you're probably getting to that point, you're probably getting near the line or already crossing it. So if you start feeling the effects of it, then it's already affecting your ability,
Exactly.
and so you're already getting trouble. But it's very clear in the scripture, if you're drunk, you've crossed the line. Okay, how can you help a person that does have a problem with alcohol? Minor, significant, serious.
I think just you have to talk to them about it, right? Because the thing is, sometimes, unless people are talking to them, they just, they probably wouldn't, they don't not realize that they have a problem.
Most don't until somebody confronts them.
Right.
So if it's a minor problem, it might just be, just kind of a warning. It's like, did you get drunk the other day? You seemed a little tipsy.
Yeah.
That's a minor problem. And it says, okay, then you need to watch it, hold them accountable for it. If it's a significant problem,
Could be start affecting their relationships, right? And
mhm,
and then serious, they might be drunk and driving, and right, could cause
Yeah,
financial ruin or whatever.
even with a significant problem, you may want to do an intervention with them where you get everybody who cares about them together and saying, you've got a severe problem here. Let's try to get through and past that barrier you just talked about.
Mhm.
They don't realize it's as bad as they think it is. If it's serious, you may be the one who needs to call the police officers. Yeah, so-and-so's driving, they're drunk. You need to pull them over. Okay, because it's better for that and make so that no one gets killed,
Yeah.
or maimed, injured, and even if they get mad at you, because it is a serious issue. As it increases, then you have to take harder stands, and that may mean, risking the friendship.
Yeah.
Because a true friend is going to call attention to it, not just wash on the table. You don't want to be someone who is enabling that to happen, which happens a lot in families.
Right.
There's a serious problem, and yet the family's enabling it to happen.
Or not saying anything about it.
They won't say anything, but you have to be willing to say something. It's significant if you have kids, and are you going to let them get in the car with someone who's prone to being drunk? And that can cause a lot of issues, especially if it's within the family, right?
Yep.
Grandma gets drunk, and so no, kids aren't getting in the car with you. They can get upset with that, but you have to call attention to it. So you want to intervene. When is it acceptable for a Christian to take drugs?
I assume when you say drugs are illicit drugs, right?
No, just pharmakeia.
Oh, any
drugs. When's it okay to take drugs?
I guess if there's a medical reason for it.
Yeah,
right?
if you have a legitimate medical reason for it. And when is I'm going to come back between them. When is it always unacceptable for a Christian to take drugs?
When there's what's like recreational stuff.
Yeah, when you don't have a medical reason for it, and it's not prescribed by the doctor, you're not under doctor's care for it, and you're just doing it on your own, and it's something that has affected you. So by that, I'm talking about drugs that affect your ability to function.
Right.
So in between the two, there's some danger, because there's a lot of doctors who will prescribe drugs. They make a lot of money off of it. It's easy for them. Here, take a pill and go on your way. You want to make sure it's an actual legitimate reason for taking the medication, and that it's being monitored, so make sure, is it working? Is it not working? Does the dosage need to be increased, decreased, whatever drug it is? Because they're all dangerous to some degree, some much more than others. So if you're not under the care of someone who's supervising it, you can get in trouble really fast.
I think that's a problem with the medicinal marijuana, right? That basically they want to buy it, and without any supervision, right? Could be a problem.
Well, even that, what most people don't know is medicinal marijuana has been around for many decades. It was prescription, but that was expensive. And the reason it's prescription is because then it would be standardized. They know exactly what you're getting and what the effect would be, but that's expensive. Because marijuana became a recreational drug, then it's cheaper than a prescription drug. And so people just wanted to do it. Diane even had a problem. She was working in a cancer unit, and marijuana has an anti-nausea effect to it.
Mhm.
And so the doctor wanted the patient to take marijuana, but it's expensive. So he just said, well, get some weed on the street and smoke it in the room. And Diane walked in and it's full with
Marijuana
smoke.
smoke, right.
So she called the doctor and says, I refuse to take care of this patient. I cannot go in that room and then work safely after that because it's going to affect me.
Mhm.
So it's the quote unquote medicinal marijuana that's popular around now. It has nothing to do with actual, it has to do with recreational. I
Right,
want this.
right.
It doesn't mean that it, like other plants, cannot produce a chemical that can be used for certain things. Anti-nausea is one of them.
Mhm.
But when you're self-medicating, no matter what it is, there are real problems.
Yeah, you can abuse it so easily.
You know, we, as much as I don't like the FDA for some things, one of the things that we actually was beneficial was when the FDA got started and started putting standardization on medication, so you know what you are getting.
Right.
Prior to that, I mean, snake oil often was either alcohol or an opiate, and you just did it until you felt good,
Yeah.
and that wasn't healthy. You never knew quite what you were getting, and one dose could be very different than another dose. So standardizing it and going through a rigorous scientific control to figure out what it was is now you can get the prescription and you know what you're getting. So you can increase or decrease as needed. And it wasn't just left to you to, well, how do I feel? It was someone else watching, because once your mind is being affected by any of these things, you can't really evaluate it.
Exactly.
You really can't. Someone else has to
Give
evaluate
me more.
it. Yeah, just more, because, well, I feel like it, and
Yeah.
not realizing side effects could be more dangerous than
Mhm.
the original problem. So, what's the relationship between the legality of a medication or homeopathic and one, safety or usage, morality of usage? And I put marijuana as an example of that.
Yes, like for example, I mean, the government legalized marijuana, right? But the thing is, it's
Federally, it's
so-
still a class 1. It's
right.
illegal,
Exactly. Yeah, it's still you can abuse it still, you know. So
and it's abused a lot.
yeah, and that's it's for tax purposes, you know. I mean, for income purposes, right? For the government, right? I mean, I think that's
Mhm.
all that primarily what it was, right? So that the government can earn more money. as a result of
Taxing
that,
is one way to earn money.
but not thinking about the actual impact to those people that are using it.
I know when Colorado was one of the first ones to legalize it for general usage, the number of industrial accidents skyrocketed, and traffic accidents.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, exactly.
There
Right.
were some companies that left Colorado because they couldn't keep good workers. They would show up, they'd be stoned, and it's too dangerous. They couldn't let them work. So there is a safety of usage, and that's a
Mhm.
huge issue. They have tests for if you're drunk and you're driving. That's very hard to figure out. How much of influence under something like marijuana are you?
If they have blood test or something, right?
Yeah,
To get
you
something.
don't, it's just not
Can't
there.
afford that.
Same thing with some of the opiates. There are a lot of medications that, I mean, it's on the label, is if you use this, don't drive. And yet people will.
Right.
And that's dangerous for everybody. So there's some huge safety issues with some of these things. Now, homeopathic is usually it's not considered a drug. It's considered herbals,
Mm.
so that they haven't been tested, and there's really sometimes just really not a lot known. There's a lot of anecdotal stories about it does this, that, or something else. There's not, it's not tested. No, it's that have interaction with other drugs.
Mhm.
So it's not that homeopathics can't work. A lot of times they can.
Yeah.
But you're kind of having to experiment because you don't necessarily know what the interactions are with anything else you're taking. I mean, with Diane's medical things, we've had all sorts of people offer all sorts of homeopathics. And she has to go online and try and find research on it to find out, well, what's the interaction? If she can't find any of that, she says, I'm sorry, maybe it'll work. I can't take it. The risk of interaction is too great.
Yeah.
So there is some real benefit for the FDAs and their rigorous structure.
Mhm.
Although they don't always follow it, there's a lot of money comes in from the drug companies to put things in that really should not have ever been in. So there's safety of usage, and then there's morality of usage as well. There are moral implications, especially if you're getting something illegally to begin with.
Yeah.
There's a moral implication there. You're breaking the law, and the law was put in for a reason. There is a reason it's still on the Federal Register as marijuana as
That's
a
wonderful.
dangerous drug, because it is dangerous. And people want to ignore that. I do know for myself, driving, I'm a lot more alert than I used to be. You have to be. You just don't know what's around.
Yeah.
So you have to be very hyper vigilant, but that's still not going to keep somebody from crossing the line right in front of you and then it's a head on.
Yeah.
So 17, signs would you look for that would indicate a person has developed a problem with legal medication?
They're totally dependent on it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're taking maybe more than they should, right? And
Yeah.
trying to do whatever they can to get more, right?
Yeah, so to keep upping it. They're trying to get extra prescriptions of it.
Yeah, or maybe going to a different doctor to get a second prescription of it or
That's a
something like that.
serious problem. And that can be with liver medication. Or you can see that they're not functioning well.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it may be that they're taking it as prescribed, but it's not being monitored correctly, and you can see that it's removing that person's ability to function.
Mhm.
And so you might have to intervene. The opioids have gotten a lot of attention in the last decade or so. And a lot of it had more to do with they weren't monitored properly.
Right.
They're very effective for what they're used for, but if you get hooked on them and then you continue on it and the doctor doesn't wean you off it, you can have a real problem.
Yeah. The pain relievers, pain medicines, right?
Pain medication.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it also goes to something that we've kind of gotten into is that anything to reduce someone's pain, we should do.
Right.
Not necessarily. How can you help someone that is abusing drugs?
It's the same thing as those people with alcoholism, right? I mean, you have to kind of confront them, and
And
they
deal
might
with the
not
issue.
realize that they have a problem, and they probably wouldn't want to hear it, right?
They usually don't. They think they're just fine, especially if they're getting it prescription.
Yeah, they'll say, "Oh, the
I'm just
doctor
fine."
gave it to me,"
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, you're not a doctor. You say, well, I'm not a doctor, but I'm observing you and something's wrong.
Yep, yep.
So, but now, so if they're abusing it, then yeah, you do have to intervene.
Yeah,
That isn't always pleasant. In fact, it usually is not pleasant,
yeah, they're not gonna like
but you do have to intervene. Because it's not just that one person you're helping, it's everybody else who's affected by it. 19, what makes tobacco products attractive to people? Smoking, chewing, snuff, and why does it become addictive?
I think in the golden age, I mean, golden cinema, it's like the actors have the smoking,
Everybody was
right?
smoking.
Right. So, but again, this one is just like it's peer pressure, right? Like, for example, used to be, right? I mean,
Used to
Yeah.
be this common.
right.
Well, it used to be at one point, and it really wasn't until probably the 70s that you started having more and more research of how bad it was. It was thought that smoking was good for you.
Right.
People are surprised that Spurgeon smoked cigars,
So it's pretty,
but at that point in time, the doctors would tell you should smoke. There was advertisements from that time period of, recommended by, this is a number one
yep.
cigarette recommended by doctors, or this tobacco by this doctor because it's good for your health. So there's a whole lot of reasons it became kind of a national pastime. But why does it become addictive?
Did they start adding chemicals on it, like the nicotine?
Well, they didn't have to. The nicotine's already there.
It's already there. Okay.
It's already there. The
So
nicotine
it's natural
is the
part
addictive.
of it.
That's the addictive part of it.
Mhm.
That's why if you're trying to break it, they give you nicotine patches, things like that, trying to wean you off the
Yep.
nicotine
Okay.
because it is very
So
addictive.
they didn't have to add it. It's already there.
It's
So-
already there. So you get more, and it's a stimulant. So it's like it's stronger. It's like caffeine, but stronger than caffeine.
Mhm.
So some people are addicted to coffee.
Yeah. remove it.
Try and try and get them to go cold turkey and no more coffee, and they have horrible headaches from it. Okay, so it is. whether it's smoking, chewing, snuff, chewing, that one has been exposed. It actually would put flavoring into it that's
Yep.
sweet, and they'd put a little bit of fine grit sand in it
What is that for?
because it cuts your gums a little bit and it allows more absorption of the nicotine.
Oh, wow, okay,
It was done on purpose, and the sweet flavors to get young kids
to get
to be
addicted.
getting into it. So yeah, it's bad. And snuff, I don't know that anybody does snuff anymore, but
Yeah,
that was very
it's not-
popular in the,
Oh, is that the one that you
sticking it-
chew, like the basket?
no, that's, no, you take a plug at the back and you chew it. But snuff it's fairly finely grained and usually was in a snuff box. You put some on your hand or something, you inhale it. So
Oh,
the,
okay. it was-
you're inhaling it. So yeah, you got weird cancers from that too. What are some ways a person addicted to tobacco product can break the addiction? And how could you help them?
It's a cold turkey, really.
Well, you can cold turkey, that could be pretty nasty. They're crawling up the wall with it, but there are things that can help with them. One is
The patches, those.
the
work?
patches work, the nicotine patches, because it's to try to keep you got to break the habit
Mhm.
and the addiction. There's a habit because there's a whole social thing that
Right,
goes
right,
with
right.
it too. You go out and have a smoke. I relax, whatever, and it becomes a way of life. So you have to break the habit as well as the addiction. The addiction part is the nicotine.
Right.
So you can have to start weaning them off of that. So they get less and less and less, so they handle it, so it's not having to go through. It's not as bad as DTs for doing tremens from withdrawal from alcohol.
Mhm.
That's bad, and that can be very bad. But you can cold turkey it. I've known people who have, and yeah, it's kind of nasty for a little while, but you got to break both addiction
Addiction and the habit.
and the habit. So there's also, and I can't remember, there's a medication that can be given that basically makes you nauseous if you smoke, if you get
Oh,
nicotine.
I see, like, there's a medicine for alcohol that,
Yeah,
if you take it, and then
you're gonna get, so it's a negative reinforcement. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I'm not doing that. I don't want to be sick.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and then help them, encourage them. It's okay. So some case studies here. You've moved to a new area, found a church that's doctrinally sound, Christ-centered, generally biblically literate. However, included in their church covenant is a commitment to abstain from the use of all alcohol except for medicinal purposes. Would that affect your consideration of the church? If so, why? If not, why not? And what questions would you ask the church leaders?
One of the consideration is that, how do they really interpret is it I mean, how do their views are they all biblically sound, right? Because this might just be an indication of the way that they look at the Bible, right? That they just look at it culturally rather than really digging into the scripture to get answers to,
That's probably the
Just
key
like
thing
this.
you want to get into.
right.
Why do they have this standard?
Mhm.
Here in the Northeast, someone traced it down with some church in, I think I remember correctly, it was New Hampshire, came up with a statement that got put into constitution after constitution all throughout the Northeast. When I came here, it actually was in this constitution. It was phrased, it's a very particular way. But it actually came out of prohibition
Mm.
efforts. That's where its origin was. And so it was in all of these churches. And so you start asking about it and you do find out, how do they interpret the scriptures?
Right.
And that's what you really want. Maybe a good church, and maybe fine, you could, would it affect me? No, not in my practice, but I would be interested to know is, well, what is the reason?
Right.
What is the real purpose for it? Now, it could just be is that, they say is that we know it's not biblically you can, but we just want to make sure that we're never the stumbling block. It could be that be the reasoning. In which case you're probably going to have to say, well, I don't drink, but I think you just stick with the scriptures.
Yeah.
And try to encourage them that way. But it could be a real issue because it could be exposing if they're legalistic on this
Yeah,
or try to justify it and twist scriptures, which I actually have heard. Sometimes it gets a little weird what gets put out there. Popular one now is, and has been around for a while, is Jesus did not turn water to
Oh.
wine, he turned it
It is
into
a
grape juice.
But as you
And
said.
And it's like, what's the word? If it was grape juice, he would have used
The sweet wine.
Glucose.
Yeah,
glucose, and not, it would not have used ointments. It's like, so stick with the scriptures. He turned it into wine.
Yep.
And the wine steward recognized it was the better wine. Okay, it was.
Yeah.
So, sometimes they'll get away with that. It's just some strange thing to want is because I'm interested in what is their biblical reasoning. That's the issue. What's the biblical reasoning? You want to ask some questions there. 2, you attend a social event sponsored by and mostly attended by church members. What would your reaction be if A, you find that beer and wine are being served, B, hard liquor is being served, C, you become aware that some of the church members are tipsy or worse? So we'll start with, okay, beer and wine is there.
I think
It's not a church event, it's a social event, but just there's a lot of church members there.
yeah, one of the things is like, have they crossed the line? If it's like, okay,
Yeah, but that's C.
oh, yeah,
One is okay, is that okay, would that bother you? Okay, it's a social event and
I think,
beer and wine's being
I mean,
served.
yeah, not the first one, but beer and wine, that
Okay.
would be something that,
Okay, how
I
about
would
hard
say-
liquor?
yeah, then that would be something that, because it only takes so a little of this, you know,
Someone was telling me the
Alcohol.
point of hard liquor is to get drunk.
right, exactly. And it only takes, it doesn't much.
It doesn't take much.
Exactly, right. And then it's people that get tipsy, they've gone too,
Now it's gone too far.
yeah,
So there's a lot. If you're someone who abstains and think everybody should abstain, of course, they're going to be upset, which is the first part. Oh, I don't want to be here. It's not a church event.
Right.
So you can't place your standard on other people. The second part of hard liquor is you may want to be more careful with,
Right.
because it was a 1 shot glass of whiskey is equal to what, like 2 beers or something. I don't remember what it is,
Mhm.
but yeah, it doesn't take much. And if people are getting tipsy and it's some church members, you need to come alongside them and
Yeah.
get them to stop.
Yeah.
Because they are crossing the line. And that's where your responsibility as a Christian brother starts kicking in. Even if it's not a church event, it's like, I don't want to be in a place where
yeah,
I can see they're crossing the line. They're going into a sinful behavior.
Yep.
Let's steer them away from that. Go get them some coffee and a tea or something. Your couple asks your advice as they plan their wedding. Being pressured to allow alcoholic drinks to be served, what question would you ask? What advice would you give them? I've had this one a lot.
I think, obviously the hard liquor shouldn't be included there, right? But, with the wine, because as we said, it's, wine
Mm-hmm.
is used for celebration, especially like cultures that
Right.
have it, right? And just a matter of making sure that that's not abused or, you know.
And that's gonna be the real issue here is you don't want to, the couple, it says it's a couple, they've been, they're asking your advice, so how would a Christian handle this? And you want to help them make sure that their guests don't end up drunk.
Yeah.
Because that's when the line's crossed. So this one's come up a lot because so many couples do come from families where there is drinking in the family, or they come from a culture where wine is served, and you have to do exactly what you just said. Sam, is give them a warning. My standard is it's one thing to have champagne poured for them,
those, yeah,
okay, or have a glass of wine poured for them. It's another one when you're sticking the bottle on the table, and a whole nother one when you have an open bar.
right.
And mine is like, never have an open bar. You're just asking for trouble. You have guests who will get drunk.
Yeah.
You're aiding
Yeah,
and
I've seen that. I
abetting.
mean, we've seen that
Period.
quite a bit. Yep.
In fact, I've never been to a wedding where there's been an open bar where there haven't been people drunk.
Yeah.
Because there are always those that's how they think about it. Or even if it's a paid bar, you still get the same thing. You are setting it up, and is that really what you want for your wedding? That your guests are drunk and embarrassing you?
Yeah.
Sometimes they are. So it's, if you're gonna have that, it might be family pressure on you. It might be that's part of your culture. You're Italian, we're gonna have some things like that. Make sure you control it.
Yeah.
You call in a couple that have started coming to church, you arrive, they ask if you'd like to join them, have a beer or a glass of wine. How will you respond?
I think since it's I would abstain in those cases, right? Because I don't know how they view
Yeah, you don't.
this, right? And that's why I don't.
That's probably a safer bet.
Yeah.
Would it be a sin if you did accept it?
No.
No.
But I would like to be concerned about them because I don't know what their position is. Because it might be that they, for where they are in their spiritual lives, right? They might see this as a totally negative thing.
It could be.
Right.
Now, this is where a position as an elder has to be more careful. If it's just the average church member, it's like, yeah, I'll have a beer. I'll have a glass of wine or something. Now, for me, it's pretty easy. It's like, I don't drink. So it's like, well, but I always want to make sure I thank them because actually that is on their part a generous offer and part of their hospitality. So it's, well, thank you very much. I appreciate your offering. And then for me, it's just very simple. It's like, well, I don't drink, but if you have, a glass of water, just be fine. Thank you. I appreciate your offer. But I do also want to thank, and, I don't like alcoholic stuff to begin with. So that is very easy for me.
Yep.
Or as I usually put it is like, you had really good grape juice and you let it rot. Serve it to me before it rots.
Yep.
I'm fine with it. But that's just a personal thing. But as an elder, I do want to be more careful because I recognize that whatever I do might give them license to do something that maybe they have freedom, maybe they don't. I don't know.
Right.
So I do want to be extra careful. And I think that's one reason why there is a difference between the elder and the deacon. One is not given to wine, so which means he's not by the wine table, and the other one is not given to much wine. Neither one wants to have their ability to think affected at all. So we're going to be much more careful. Parent calls you, they're distraught, found their teenager is abusing drugs. How will you counsel them?
I think it's probably take them and talk to them what they have to find out why the kid is having this problem, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
find out the origin.
Yeah, and then see what's going on and maybe offer some help on how to deal with it as far as getting the kid out of that, but versus try to figure out what result, why it happened.
Okay, since this is they are abusing drugs, first thing probably is going to be is, okay, your child needs to be in a drug rehab program. You need a place where this is going to be very serious about dealing with it. Asking the questions you suggested means I'm going to get more background on it. I want to find out the origin of this. Is this his friends? Is this coming from a school?
Right.
Where's the origin of this? And I want to make sure that I block any of the influence that's pushing toward that.
Yeah, if it's friends, right? Extricate them or her from that.
Do that. I've known of cases where the parents immediately, they weren't homeschooling and his friends at school and stuff. So it means like, well, they're not your friends anymore because they're not your friends to begin with doing this. And you're sticking with me and you're being homeschooled. And it's 24/7. You're not leaving my side until we get this straightened out. You want to take it as something extremely serious because it is. And whatever it is, they may make it like it's nothing. Well, I'm just having some marijuana or something. Like, no, you're abusing it, and no, not under us. You're going to get help.
Yeah.
So take it very seriously. Let's see. You're called to intervene in a debate between two people about the usage of marijuana. What question would you ask? What biblical principles can you give? Resolve the conflict and guide them concerning marijuana and all drug use? The same principles are applied to all stuff.
Because one of the studies shows that marijuana is like basically the starting point for much more serious drugs, right? I mean, sometimes, oh, it's recreational, but the thing is,
It's always been known as a gateway drug.
right?
And it's got its own serious side effects to begin with.
Yeah, and again, if it's not controlled medicinal marijuana, you should be leery in using it at all.
Well, even if it is controlled medicinal, is it actually being controlled medicinal?
No, I mean by the prescribed by the doctor or something like that.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. There's very little of that. More, it's doctors who give you a prescription so you can go to the local store and get what you
Oh,
want.
I see.
It's really
Okay.
not, it's not being
Okay.
controlled,
I see.
and it's not being medicinal. It's just that, okay, I need a prescription in order to get past the laws of my
I
state.
see. Okay, yep.
So,
Yeah, then,
so if it's like, oh, do you have cancer? You're on cancer treatments, right?
yep,
Oh, you're on some other treatments for some other disease, right?
Mhm.
No, you're getting because,
you just feel like
well, I'm
Oh, I feel
addicted to
good.
it. So you want to make sure they understand all the ramifications of it.
Yep.
Most people are not aware of the dangers of it, and that seems like it's gotten less than more. You know, growing up when I did, we had a lot of education materials in our health classes, and marijuana was a target
Yep.
as a gateway drug. How would it affect you? The dangers of it, and it included paranoia.
Mhm.
It is well known that marijuana causes paranoia, and
That could be all the result of, I mean, all those shootings that we have, against
all
people,
sorts of
right?
things. Well, it's not helping.
Mhm.
It affects your ability to perceive what's going on around you.
Yep.
Most people in marijuana, it's usually slows down instead of speeds up, so they drive very slow.
Yeah.
And they can't react in time. So it's very dangerous. So first is, I think, educating the people about exactly what it is and what the dangers are. I would ask a lot of questions there. If they say, well, I got a prescription, I'll say, well, what's the disease you have? What exactly are you trying to
Yeah.
get from this? And why are you choosing that?
Yeah.
You may have to ask, well, do you have a prescription? Oh, you're getting it off the street. You're growing your own. What's going on there? And that really goes for all drug usage.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. You're not a doctor. I'm not a doctor. So I may not be able to ask all the questions I want, but I do know enough to know I need to push them toward what are you actually doing?
Yeah.
And there's a very simple biblical principle, though I may have freedom in so many ways. I'm not to be mastered by anything,
Right,
except Christ. So is this something that is becoming an addiction for me? Is this something that's trying to
and you're dependent
master
on it.
me,
Yep.
where I become dependent upon it? That's very dangerous. How is this going to help you as opposed to actually walking with Christ more closely?
Mhm.
Let's see, you are a friend's house. After a nice dinner, he pulls out a box of fine cigars, opens up his collection of pipes of tobacco. How you respond to his offer to join him in a nice smoke?
You can just say, thank you, that's a generous offer. It's a fine cigar. But the thing is, just say thank you, but I'm not
Okay,
gonna,
you don't smoke, so
don't
okay, you can do
smoke.
that.
And
if you
and
do
also the
smoke?
thing is, it's you can quickly get addicted to the nicotine, right?
Well, and if you've never smoked before, you
You
Is
probably
that-
would just like,
I said I haven't smoked before, and I don't want to turn green in front of you, so.
that's a good thing.
It could be bad. It seems to be among Presbyterians or something, is like, okay, they want their fine cigars, like, okay, does you mind if we go outside? I don't. Because and it's a personal thing, I just don't like the smell.
Right.
So can we go outside? I'll, hang around with you, but we want to be careful, is that, okay, there is freedom to do that. There's nothing that says you can't. This isn't something where, obviously, if he's smoking that, this is not like cigarettes where he's addicted to it and it's chain smoking or something. But you don't necessarily have to participate, but you want to, again, I think those very well done is I want to recognize the generosity of the hospitality being offered, even if it's not something I want to personally take up. What advice would you give to a friend who's trying to quit their tobacco addiction? Kind of covered that earlier,
Yeah,
didn't
I think,
I?
point them to, some of the, you know, what they can do, like, for
Yeah.
example, the patches or whatever, like the medicines that they can take that
They can help,
help them.
so.
I said, your habits, remove the habits and
Move
the
on out
addiction.
with it. Well, I think we went wait because I haven't been watching the time. I can't see the clock back there. I think we'll take up gambling with the next one and traditions and cultural stuff. I'll send out an email, so
Maybe that's what happened,
Okay.
that they didn't get the email and then realized it.
don't know. Okay, we'll find out one way or the other. Gonna stop the recording. Stop the